Hey everyone, Joe here from ActionX. Welcome to What's in the Tube, or welcome back if this is your fifth Nancy Drew Season 2 episode review. I want to say it's number 5. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest with you. I had a long day today, and of course, if you're wondering where's the usual logo backdrop, I had a phone call to take care of as soon as the episode wrapped. So, of course, my DVR just kept looping back to normal, so I don't have it, and I'm too lazy to turn on my PS5 because I also want to finish the Doom Patrol upload, which I also forgot to finish before I had that call. So, regardless, excuses aside, let's just get down to it. Let's boil it down to the Drewness of this, which seemingly we're like now continuing the main storyline properly, and with some really interesting development, mind you, because it seemed like every little the last two episodes for me mostly felt like these were fun things, like a fun cops to play with, and we got little pieces of what the actual storyline was going to be for the season going on in the background. Those came back into the forefront today, and we were just focusing mostly square on that and where things are going to progress to, where the next stage of this mystery or this adventure is going to go for the Drew crew next. And for once, I really enjoyed it because it pushes these characters into interesting new places, and they're going to really figure out what is next for them. And I have a couple cool concepts. Will that actually happen? Probably not, but regardless of what that may be, I still think this was one of the better episodes of Nancy Drew out of the 5 so far. I think this was up there with the premiere and stuff, and I'm just very curious to see what next week's going to bring to the table as the story keeps trucking along. And also we got the mid-season schedule rollout for Nancy Drew, so we're going to go on for a couple more weeks, and then afterward we're going to go on Thanksgiving break for a couple weeks, and then after we're back for the last two, and then we'll be back in January 11th, I believe the date was. No, that's Superman Lois. I forget about that. Later in January 13th, I believe, is when Nancy Drew comes back. So that's how it is. It's going to be a little bit of a whirlwind for there, but of course, we haven't done this in a while, in terms of a traditional TV year. So I'm excited about getting back to that old concept of thing. So I'm very excited. But let's go for the Butcher recap and talk about this week's episode of Nancy Drew. So we begin with the... I forgot. This is the whole, even if I had that phone call, I always forget the start. How did I begin this episode? And I'm pulling my ears because I'm trying to remember exactly what they did, but I'm blanking on it. To be honest with you, I'm really blanking on it. I'm gonna say I'm gonna start at a random point here because I'm really blanking on hard on how we began this episode. I'm really I want to say they're picking up from last week with the... Are we back in... I know Nancy immediately talks with the detective who's back this week from his coincidental, he's off this week, excuse about everything. And it's I forgot what was going to happen with the killers. The killers being moved to another facility, another place to serve another charge. I think back to the town they were at. Because he's right there. He's in Horseshoe Bay for a bit. I think he is in Horseshoe Bay to just deal with the stuff he did while he was down there before he gets transferred away again. So Nancy's still hard driven on the fact that, what does he mean by the whole phrase? I'm only a part of something bigger. This is only the beginning. It's still irking Nancy, and she needs to find out. And this is the best chance she has since he's still in town. So she needs to figure out, how do I get that information from him before he leaves? Ace, meanwhile, is being really pressed hard by Mr. Drew, because Mr. Drew's kind of pissed. Okay, I have a guy. I'm representing someone who disappeared, and the guy that the dad that you're taking care of could have a responsibility for that, because you're also mentioning that he had bloody knuckles afterwards. So it's is he dead? Are you involved in this? And Ace is being honest with him, no, I was just chauffeuring him around because that's what my girlfriend wanted me to do. As soon as I saw his hands covered in blood, I told him to get out of my car, which can be a little tricky to prove in court because, who knows what this other guy has in tail. And he did tell Ace, "You're gonna regret this. You're gonna regret this." So what does he mean by that? Who really knows? But Ace, of course, now concerned for his own safety, tries to hire Mr. Drew, but because Mr. Drew's already representing the other client, it would be a massive conflict of interest if he defends both of them. So he says, nope, just go to the police, Tell them what you know right now, and then you can go from there. Um, so whether or not Ace fully took the advice is still unclear from my brain. But he just heads off back into the wind. The Claw does get a call in that, like, yeah, Ace is calling sick, which is not that very difficult to see because the Claw's very empty this week. There are no customers. I feel so sorry for Nick. He is spending so much money on the Claw, on the youth center, on his apartment building, and he's literally, I don't even think he's seeing any returns yet. I feel so sorry for the dude. Like, he's a millionaire, but, like, he's still not getting any of the returns that, you know, he would get out of it, to be honest with you. And also, coincidentally, Nancy wants to do that thing. George is off doing something else this week, which we'll talk about in a bit. So basically, no one's working at the Claw. Again, if we do eventually hit episode 100 of this show, I want to see an episode from the perspective of the Claw employees, like the ones who like just show up day to day. It's like, oh, is George going to show up this week? Is Nancy going to show up today? It's like, probably not. It's like, I want to know how they run things without it. And they leave little old George's sister to kind of like pick up their slack. Like, they're basically like treating her like, you're an unofficial part of our team, but you're mostly the person who's like the responsible one in terms of like the actual business side of things. But so where George is off to this week is she's visiting her dear old dad, which someone in the comments from last week's episode commented, because I didn't really pay attention to this when I was doing it, like the camera shot was not helping me at all, that the dad looks very young, and I finally looked and I was like, he is very young, because it is none other than Ryan Choi from the Arrowverse, who is a ripe old 35 years old. He's still hella young to have a 19-year-old as a kid. Now, to be fair, I know it's possible, but like, I highly doubt. Oh, I should say I highly doubt. I don't think he had it when he was 16. I should scratch that. That could happen at 16, but they don't know that for sure. But I don't mind. I like the actor a lot. He's going to be in the Arrowverse. He's going to be back on our screens more often. For me, at least, he's going to be on the Flash crossover for Armageddon, which I'm actually pretty eager to check out when it starts up again. But other than that, George is there because she wants to know, why'd you friend request me? You know, what was your chain of thought thinking, like, after 18 years, I'm just going to send her a friend request? And I can actually just talk about the whole subline, because George doesn't really get involved in, like, the main matter here. She's just doing her own personal thing this week. Like, after weeks of just, like, the wedding and, like, you know, figuring out what's next for her life, and then her dad trying to make a ploy to get back into it. This is this is like a critical point for her. So he just heard about it online that, like, yeah, George is getting married. There's a big fan club around her because of the fans. And he just was like, very like, maybe now's the right time to like check in on her life and see, how things are at. And honestly, even after hearing everything he had to say, George is not convinced any other way, because he hasn't been around her since not even the day after the day she was born. He hasn't been around, which for her, like, I'm not surprised she said, like, I don't care, because you just were never there. And whenever things got tough, it wasn't, you didn't come to the rescue. I had to make my own rescue. I had to support not just myself, I had to support my own siblings, because our mom was just very incompetent and didn't really care that much either. And that sucked, because like, George had to be thrown into adulthood fairly early on in her life, and I felt for her, and she made in a moment of weakness that kind of like really stung it to him. It's like, one point she was about to call it quits, move to Boston, start a whole new life regardless of her family. She didn't care. She was so close, but she didn't, because she knows better. And it was because of his abandonment of her that she's kind of had a thing for older men, because she needed that older adult presence in her life that neither of her parents were giving her, which also give her like a lot of mistakes in her life. But how can you blame her? That's how her mentality was grown up as. You can't stop it. It just happens. And it's just telling you, like, I don't care about you, because like, you never were there. Why should I start caring now? Like, just because I'm getting married, all of a sudden you have a conscience, like, oh, I should be there for my daughter. Like, no. When you get married, like, that should be a special occasion for the people that were always there for you, or were like really there for you when the times got tough. And he wasn't. So for her, like, he doesn't care, nor do I care. Like, he understands what he's doing now. She gets that, but at the end of the day, like, for her sake, like, it wouldn't make sense for him to walk her down the aisle. Like, yeah, traditionally, yeah, but like, it's not what's deserved, and it's not something that he has earned. And if he does actually want to make a difference, then he's gonna have to like wait a very long time for them to even get to that stage. But if Nancy Drew, the show is an indication, like Nancy one day says, "I don't want to see you around you anymore, Mr. Drew." Less than a month later, "I miss you. I want you back. You can move back to your own house." Who knows? It could end up being like that. Yeah, I don't know if Nick. Yeah. So, but meanwhile, on Nick's front, as he's just like making sure like the claw is basically manageable. Ace disappears. He just doesn't show up. I know like Nancy does leave the claw earlier to kind of like explore stuff to kind of get the to figure out what the freaking killer knows about the other one, or what does he mean by that. I know Ace does pop by the claw just to like say hey, kind of like just like be a little anxious because like he does have to do something. Even though he does, Nancy does tell him like, yeah, my dad wants to remind you that you need to go and contact the police for something, and he's like, yeah, I know that, don't worry about that. Afterward, Ace disappears for the whole episode. He's on the way, but we slowly start to get clues on like what Ace has been doing secretly, since that way. So meanwhile, Nick's front, after a decent amount of time, after Ace has been off the grid and everything, his dad shows up asking him, "Hey, where's Ace? Where did he go? Like, do you know where he is?" And Nick's like, "No, I don't know. Like maybe he's somewhere else. Maybe at the auto shop, maybe." And the dad, and I forgot the dad does do sign language, so I'm thinking I remember. Oh yeah, that was his thing because of his accident. And then he was like, "Oh, maybe I should pop over for a visit." Nick is a nice person and just said like, "Do you want? I can go with you. Maybe get some company." And the dad's like, "Yeah, come along. Let's do it." And they end up doing a stakeout, and secretly, and Nick is sadly thrown into the middle of it, and they just talk like just like a dad wanted to get to know his son from a different point of view, and I forgot if they do talk about the secret son thing. I forgot. I don't think they entirely do. I don't remember. I don't remember much of that, to be honest with you. I know they were watching the whole thing and trying to figure out where Ace could have gone. Meanwhile, on the Nancy front, it slowly starts to realize it's not going to be very simplistic to get him straight out to confess, because again, he's a very experienced serial killer. I don't think it would be that simpler for a teenage girl to just basically logically talk to him if a bunch of detectives wouldn't. So he has to explore some other options to get what she wants, which, sad to say, she has to team up with the one and only Tempest, who is very much along the lines of, "Hey, I don't trust you, but here's the thing. I don't really have much to say about you, but like I need your help right here, right now." And because Bess is still working with her with the woman in white, training thing, Tempest is being like very, I don't know what the word is for her. She's more like mischievous. She has her own bigger plans for Horseshoe Bay. And getting Nancy to like slowly be on board with this can be like, this is the stepping stone I need for this thing. So Nancy has no choice but to team up with her. And one of the things is like, okay, they need to separate the hotshot new detective again, to go off-site so that they can go in and infiltrate his mind with the power of magic or paranormal activity. I don't fucking know. So they sent Bess over to kind of be the distraction point, acting like she has more information about about another case to get him away. Because once he's away, like the rest of the secret police officers, they love Nancy. They won't even bat an eye to her. So the plan is like, so while Bess is doing that, they're gonna sneak over to the jailhouse, get to him and put something in his brain so that he could start they can start seeing like what he really knows about everything that happened. So they do that. Bess is waiting, and Bess just conveniently just really acts it up and hams it up, saying like, so it's like, we should wait for Tempest, and then the cat thing shows up and it dies, and they're trying to bury it, and it's trying to delay a lot of time. That's not even humanly possible, but she manages to do so. Nancy and Temperance get into the building. They get to the guy, and they're gonna use this like magic bug dust. I don't know how to describe it because I don't really know. To be honest with you, this is so weird. But okay, this is the power of magic. So they get in there. They get to the jailhouse. They start asking questions, and they blow this magic dust at him, which allows them to transmit themselves into his mind, where they see a very crucial point. So, like he said, he wasn't the only one. Is correctly right. There is another frozen ice heart killer out there. But unlike this one, who's more like scientific and like realistic in his approach, this one is like full-on supernatural paranormal entity here. So now I know like there's something else beneath Horseshoe Bay. I'm really surprised Horseshoe Bay property values have not gone down. Because if I know like there was a freaking ice killer underneath my streets, I'm like, I'm moving the fuck out of here. Like, get me away. I'll take any other. I'll go to Riverdale. Scratch that. This is the 7th time I referenced Riverdale on one of my shows. I'll move to freaking Central City. I can deal with seeing the Flash and like seeing monsters every other day. I can see that. I could see myself living through that. So now they realize that that's what he meant. Like, he's only part of something bigger. It's like they took out him, but like there's an actual like really scary killer down there, which kind of makes sense, you know, to the MOs, because like one is like very methodical, very well placed. The other one's just like very brash and very like thrown over the place. So we kind of figure out the one from the episode. The first episode was the entity, and then he was the one who did the second one. That's what I'm assuming. So now that they have their plan of action, now that they know what's going on, Temperance decides to do something to kind of like really be a bit of a dick, because also showing to Nancy like, my way's not entirely wrong. We can explore this, but you got to break some rules, some of your rules. Which is, I think he kills him, or not kills him. I don't know. I'm pretty much sure she kills him. Only the guys like she knew like he was gonna escape, and then like all the other the victims and their families are not gonna get justice because the likelihood of catching this dude again was gonna be rare. So I killed him so like he can still be punished. But Nancy does not believe in that. But regardless of the case might be, Temperance says like the age-old traditional villain thing of like we're not entirely that different, you and I. If you only just bend over a little bit, you could see like the real other side of things. But Nancy doesn't want to see that right now at this current moment. Nancy calls in a team meeting, but meanwhile they're wrapping up the Ace front. Turns out Ace was involved in a sting operation to get the Amanda's dad and another dude caught off guard, and you know got them arrested. Which I'm like, okay, thankfully Ace is not going to jail. His dad shows up, and they begin to have a little bit of a skirmish about like how Ace should have told him about this thing. Like, why would you even do this sort of thing? Why would you get involved in this sort of thing? And Ace is like, look, I was just doing a favor to my girlfriend. Like, that's all I was doing. As soon as I knew this was something way worse, I pulled out right away. But Ace's dad's like, you should have communicated. You should have told me about this. And, you know, you should have, like, really said, and like, even in sign language, like, Ace gets so mad. It's like, well, like, I learned keeping secrets from you. You always keep everything, including your secret son. And then at such poor timing, his mother shows back in, and so she also knows sign language. She like wants to ask like, why does he mean my secret son? What are you saying? Like, what's going on here? And the dad's like, he's not confirming or denying anything. He's just like, look what your son is doing. Like, look at all this crazy things he's been doing this past few months. And he's like, she's like, no, don't derail the subject. What did you mean by you have a secret son? But his temper starts to get in a way, and starts like honestly actually detesting everything to Ace, like, you know, putting all the blame on him. Like, you know, we've been treating him like a kid all this time. Like, you know, he's an adult now. You know, we should be treating him like an adult. And, you know, Ace is like, I am an adult. I am a man. And it's like, well, you've been living in the same bedroom since you were 8 years old. So what does that say about you? And the dad gets so mad because like Ace and his mom are trying to be real and trying to be realistic with him. Like, we got to talk about this sort of thing. The dad's like, no, I'm done. Like, you know, Ace, if you want to act like this, if you want to act like a man, then move out of my house. Like, you're not allowed there anymore. And, you know, once Ace starts to try to begin to, like, really explain the situation, the dad just, like, starts talking, even though, like, vocal-wise, he really can't talk. He's just saying, like, just shut up. Like, you know, shut up. You're not in my house anymore. Get out. And he walks away. So, Honestly, that was a big turning point. I wasn't really expecting that, like, for Ace to like gab that much. I honestly thought it was going to be like a simple, like, pat on the back, like father son moment. Like, no, he actually just dead ass kicked out his own stuff from his house. Thankfully, Nick allows him to stay over and temporarily, paying him a little bit of rent, just to kind of like offset the cost a little bit. And, you know, Nick doesn't mind. He doesn't mind having his bro, sleep over here for for some time. George gets filled in along the way, and I want to say so George is okay with it. But then when George actually admits to Nick, because they did have an earlier phone call about where George was at, and George was I was at the dentist. Like, this feels uncomfortable. I'm at the dentist for some reason. I don't even know why she was using a dentist as the analogy for this, but she tells George, Nick, the truth that, like, yeah, I saw my dad. I had this moment with him, but I think, like, everything's okay. And George is feeling, not George, Nick is feeling a little bit bad, feels bad, like, why didn't you tell me about this? She's like, well, this wasn't your thing to tell at the moment. Like, I'm going to do this by myself. I'm going to figure this out on my own. Like, I was going to tell you when, like, right now, like, when I dealt with it, but Nick's like, you've always been such a closed out private person since day one of our relationship. I found out that we're engaged and we're approaching marriage, that, like, maybe you want to open up to things, like, a little bit earlier than expected. And George is not seeing, like, the real equal side of things with Nick here. And I feel so sorry for Ace over there that he just came out of a parental conflict between his folks, then ended up with him leaving his house, and then he's here, similarly with Nick and George having a similar argument about just disagreements on things, and Ace is not feeling comfortable right now. It's really poor timing for him, to be honest with you. That by the time Beth shows up, he immediately says, like, I gotta do recycle things. You just moved in here. What recycle things do you need to do in this building you just moved into? But that's that conversation gets decided. Ace takes a minute to, like, relax a bit. Nancy shows up, and they all touch base about, like, just what they've been doing recently. And so Nancy calls in the team meeting to kind of tell them what she knows. They're like, yeah, so there is another ice heart killer out there, but an actual paranormal, supernatural one. So now we need to go into its lair and get him. Which I'm like, Nancy, why do you keep picking fights with it? Just do the carnival, then boom, you avoid the problem. I know it's not the most permanent solution, but, like, as long as you do the carnival from now on, you will be fine. But okay, sure, we're gonna go into the lair of this very demonic being that will probably kill you with its bare cold hands. All because you say, we have to do this. I'm like, oh god, you're all gonna die again. You're all young adults. Have some fun. Go live a little. Like, the cost of being a hero. That's where the episode ends, with them now dead. So, like, now we need to find the second ice heart killer. And also, there was a little joke I forgot to mention that Ace was apparently trading favors for with good old Ryan, who's off this week for a charity event for the freaking youth center. Apparently, Ace has been doing, like, a lot of the chores around the house, around the Drew house, and under the condition that Ace can drive Ryan's car when he's not around. Which I'm like, honestly, that's not a bad deal. I would take that deal because I want that free car. Well, it's not my free car, but to get to use that free car would be pretty cool. But I really I enjoyed this episode. Like, again, more focused on, like, Nancy's growing, like, relationship with Temperance, whether it's what she wants or what she doesn't want. Ace actually being thrown into, like, so many new directions in his life that I can actually relate to him there. Like, I really do feel sorry for them. Nick and George, again, it's another one of those, this is the growing pains of a fiance, couple. That another thing they're going to have to eventually figure out with and get that on the roll and, get that iron out. But right now, like, obviously they're in the heat of things with, like, with other things to do. So I'm not surprised. This is the way, like, they kind of blew up a little bit. And hopefully they will fix this and, like, see the equal side of things so they can move past it. Whether or not that'll be in, next week's or, like, down the line. We'll see how that goes. But I was interested to see that. I enjoyed it. Again, I just hope it doesn't get too repetitive because, like, eventually you're just going to ask the question, why don't they break up? Because, like, it's becoming too much. But we'll see how it goes. Tempers is slowly coming around on, like, what is her overall connection to the grand scheme of things? I want to know what her grand scheme is already. Like, hopefully by the mid-season finale, we'll have an idea of whatever the hell she's planning for her Shube, because I want to see it already. Like, it's taking a little bit too long for me in terms of Nancy Drew standards to figure out what the hell she's planning at the overall stage of the plan. So, hopefully we get that sooner or later. But I'm going to give this episode 2 thumbs up. Enjoyed it. Really good. Let me know in the comments below, what did you think of this week's episode of Nancy Drew? I'm always down for a conversation down below, as always. And I think that's going to do it for me tonight, everyone. So, if you're unaware, this has been What's the Two from ActionX, reviewing every episode in the 3rd season of Nancy Drew. If you want to know what we're doing normally and What's the Two besides our Nancy Drew reviews, we are currently doing the Rookie Season 4 episode reviews each and every Monday mornings after brand new episode, on Sunday nights on ABC or on Hulu the next day. We're also doing DC Stargirl reviews each and every Wednesday mornings after a brand new episode on Tuesday nights on the CW, or free the next day on the CW app normally. We also are doing Walker Season 2 episode reviews each and every Friday mornings after a brand new episode on Thursday nights on the CW, or free the next day on the CW app. And we're also doing Doom Patrol Season 3 episode reviews each and every Saturday mornings after a brand new episode on Thursdays on HBO Max. Next week is also our Titan Season 3 review, so stay tuned for that. But otherwise, if you don't care about Nancy Drew, you're in luck. We'll be back next week with another episode review. I don't think I have anything going on next week, so I think we should be good. But after the week after the next one, we are on break for the holidays, for Thanksgiving. So then we'll be back at the beginning of December to continue it up. So that's kind of how the schedule is going to be. So stay tuned for that. But again, this has been What's the Two from ActionX. Please subscribe to us on youtube.com/ActionX videos. Like, favorite, share this review if you want to, but it helps us get us out there to other members of the Drew crew who have yet to discover us. Helps us beat up that YouTube algorithm that hates me ever so much in life, and as well as sharing us for free here on the interwebs. Ring that bell for notification. Our next review is live for Nancy Drew, which is normally each and every Sunday mornings. And also, please follow us on social media to stay up to date with any sort of updates for the channel. But until then, stay safe out there, be good to each other, and as always, peace out.